Zambia, UK, Turks and Caicos, because that is where my life has been lived. I began here in Zambia, I was born here, and left at 16 to England, where I did secondary education, university. I graduated with accountancy, which is very far from the topic I'm talking about now, but that was my introduction to secondary education. And I guess it sparked in me a curiosity, a researcher. And when I was 16, my mum began exploring with an organization called Psychology of Vision, and that led me on a journey of discovering myself, a healing journey. And I'd say here, you know, I went down a healing journey, and it feels as if the last few decades have been a self-designed BA in holistic health and personal development. So I haven't done necessarily a set course at university, but it's just been my curiosity and my life experiences that have brought me to where I am now. So I'm a trained massage therapist, I'm a yoga teacher, and I've done extensive professional or personal development work with teachers such as Dr. Brenda Davies, which some of you may know, Brandon Bays, who does journey work, just wonderful tools and techniques to understand myself. And so I am based in Turks and Caicos now. I don't live in Zambia, but I travel here sometimes, and hopefully more so in the near future. I'm 40 years old. Apparently that's when life begins. And I'm a mother. I have 2 daughters, 6 and 11. So my menstrual period journey began, I've said here, how old were you when you first got your period? For some of us, we can't remember. It's a memory that we've blocked out. For some of us, it was traumatic. For some of us, it was welcomed. In my case, I was 11, I believe, and it wasn't a moment of celebration. So my mother is Irish immigrant that were living in England. That's her lineage, and periods and things to do with women's health bodies was not exactly talked about. So it wasn't this special moment of let's go and paint our nails, or, you know, let's celebrate. And it was very painful, extremely painful. And I remember I had to go to school, and I think I was one of the first, and so I didn't really tell some of my friends, and I just had to soldier through. And that was my experience of periods for until my mid-20s. A lot of pain, and the pain just kept getting worse. Really heavy periods, lots of clots, and shame, a lot of shame. It was just this thing that I was experiencing, and I had to hide. When I was sort of 23, I was living in England, and my yoga teacher mentioned a talk, and it was by this book that I have here, Alexandra Pope. She's the founder of the Red School, and it was Alexandra and Shani Hugo who had founded the Red School, and it was about this book, The Pill, Are You Sure It's For You? And there was a documentary called The Moon Inside of You, and it was just all about periods, and introducing this idea of cyclical living, and understanding that as women, we're not like men. We don't have the same energy every single day. We operate according to this cycle, and it's actually connected with the moon. So there'll be moments where we have a lot of energy, and we're ready to, like what I'm doing right now, stand here and deliver a talk and have lots of energy. And then there's times when we need to go inwards and be more quiet and introverted, introspective, looking within, and that's around the time of our bleed. And so this was mind-blowing for me, just realizing that, oh, so it's okay that sometimes I don't have the energy. And then this pain that I was experiencing was actually my body trying to tell me, can you slow down? Something's not right. You know, your path is perhaps not in the right way. And so this was huge for me, and I began implementing some of the things that I learned at this talk, and overnight my periods began to change. Suddenly I didn't need to take that codeine painkiller that was making me slur my words at work and not being able to function. And I took told my boss I need to take the day off, my period has started, and he was like, yes, 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 of course, go. And I thought, why didn't I just say that before? Because I put myself through so much pain thinking I have to function. So that changed a lot for me, and I began to look, and I have this diagram here of this cycle, and tracking my cycle, becoming aware of when the bleed was, and just noticing what my energy level was like. And here there's 4 seasons, and I know here in Zambia we don't have necessarily the 4 seasons, but in the northern hemisphere we have winter, spring, summer, and autumn. And the menstrual cycle falls into this same pattern. So winter, when the leaves have fallen and it's all inwards, the animals are burrowing, that's our period. And that's when we need to go quiet and rest and nurture and nourish ourselves. And then we have spring, where the shoots start to come out and slowly our energy is coming. And then summer, when we're ovulating, now we're radiant and we can ask for the promotion, we can deliver the talk, we can have maybe ideas coming. And then autumn, when everything sort of starts to slow down and we gather. It's a bit like when we're preparing to have a baby, we make our nest, we get everything ready, and then we dive back in. And so I began living my life according to this cyclical living way, and it was huge. It made a huge difference. And then I had some wake-up calls. The first one was when I was 29, when I became a mother. I had a cesarean delivery, I had preeclampsia, and after that I actually had postnatal depression. It was a really difficult time in my life, and my blood pressure stayed high, so it made me come back to, looking and questioning, okay, something's not right here. And then I had my second daughter when I was 34, and at the time I was diagnosed with a left ovarian cyst. And it was nothing cancerous. I had it checked, and they said we recommend removing it through surgery, and I was reluctant because I had already had my cesarean, I already had scar tissue, and I didn't want to, introduce more. But at the back of my mind was knowing that my maternal grandmother, she had ovarian cancer at 40, and she had a hysterectomy. And then 2 years later was diagnosed with lung cancer. And she was told, they removed one lung, and she was told she'd only live 2 years, but she lived until she was 49 and died of lung cancer. And then my mother also had stage 3 cancer in the uterus. And so they removed just the uterus, her ovaries remained. And then and that was at 38, and then she developed PCOS, so just lots of cysts on her ovaries, and they removed her ovaries then, so she woke up from a surgery thinking she was just having cysts removed, and everything was gone. And so I knew that, the chances of it being in my maternal line, that it was something I needed to be aware of, but I'd also had all of this other training in self-development work, and I think this is the book now I'm mentioning here, Dr. Christiane Northrup. She's a gynecologist, and she's written this book, which I think is like the Bible of women's health, and she talks about her experience working as a gynecologist, and I just have this quote here from the book. So, we women are meant to express our creative natures throughout our lives. Our creations will change and evolve as we ourselves grow and develop. Our ovaries, too, are always changing, forming, and reabsorbing those small physiological cysts. As long as we express the creative flow deep within us, our ovaries remain normal. And when our creative energy is blocked in some way, abnormally large cysts may occur and persist. So I had this information and was trying to understand, well, okay, I have this cyst, so what has formed it? Why is it here in the first place? And while the right side is more analytic, action-orientated, yang, male side, and each woman will have to decide for herself what this means. But most of the ovarian cysts I see are on the left side, symbolic, I feel, of the wounded feminine in this culture. So it sent me on a journey, and I knew from the gynecologist I had time. It wasn't imminent that I needed to get it removed, and so I thought, okay, let me, this book is filled with all these women that had cysts. Some of them had them removed and then they grew back again, or fibroids that were removed and then they grew back again. And I was thinking, well, there's something, like what is it that's making this happen? And I went researching on the internet, and I came across Kelly Garza in California, and she founded the Peristeam Hydrotherapy Institute, and there was this blog post on the website that was called Doctor Cancels Surgery After Woman Shrinks Gigantic Ovarian Cyst Using Vaginal Steam. I had no idea what vaginal steam was, but I continued reading all that I could on her website, and the idea was that you can't grow cancer in a healthy uterus, and the steam was there to help have an efficient uterine cleanse. And so I thought, okay, there must be something in this. So if you keep your period healthy, this is really the best preventative measure that we can use. And I knew that my period was not a healthy one. Like, it had improved, I had less pain, but it was still not that healthy. So I ordered in 2018 a big bag of herbs like this from the Steamy Chick website, and I needed a sauna, and so I asked my husband if he could build me one, and that's him building it. And at the time, you can see my youngest, she was about a year and a half. So just to backtrack a little, I'd had the cyst diagnosed in the pregnancy, delivered, and then a year and a half into postpartum, I just felt really uncomfortable around ovulation. So halfway through the period, like day 14 to 16, I'd get these excruciating pains. And that was what made me go back to the doctors and scan again, and they said, okay, it's still there. And so I began steaming. And Kelly Garza speaks on her website about what a healthy period looks like. And ideally, we're looking for 4 days of bleeding, fresh red blood from the beginning to the end, and it's a continuous even flow, so it's not sort of starting and then stopping or having big clots. It's just this even flow, and no pain, and coming every 28 to 31 days. So that was not the case for me. My period was not 4 days long, it was about 10. And I had brown blood at the beginning, brown blood at the end of the period, big clots, and it would come and then sort of go off and then come back again. And there was pain, but not, excruciating pain. And so I steamed, and the bleeding went down from 10 days to about 5 to 6 days, evened out a lot more. There was smaller clots, and I had much less pain, much less breast tenderness, much less cramping around ovulation, around the middle of the cycle. And here I am now. This was 2018. I still have the cyst, so I've not healed it, but it sent me on a journey. And I realized that sometimes these symptoms come, and it's not really about necessarily fixing it, but it's that journey, that whatever that thing is bringing into you, and it keeps me accountable. It keeps me consistent with my own self-care, like my steaming, and it's led me on another journey, which I'll share more about later. And so yeah, I'll go a bit more into the steaming, but let's just backtrack a bit now. We'll pause and look at gynecology. So actually, a little bit more that I wanted to add there about the steaming is I was doing the steaming for myself, and then I ended up doing more training with Kelly Garza. So I did the vaginal steam facilitator training, which taught me how to set up the sauna and how to, which herbs to use, how to assist other people in doing it. And then there was a more advanced training, the Peristeam Hydrotherapy training, which teaches you about how to work with a woman who's just delivered, who's just given birth, who's about to give birth, who's having infections, who's having thrush. And I just was fascinated. I just wanted to geek out about this topic that for years had crippled me, and now here I was learning this thing that could transform women's lives, like drastically. And so part of the studying was learning about gynecology. And here we have, I don't have the book with me, but the Trottola is a book that was written in 1100s, and it was in Italy, and this was considered the gold standard of women's care. So a lot of Europe was influenced by what was in this book, and every second page refers to steaming or fumigation, where you use smoke, so like burning sage or different herbs. And also in ancient Egypt, there's tablets that explain how vaginal steaming was done with myrrh. So it's ancient. This is an ancient practice that is around the whole world. So my teacher, Kelly Gaza, she researched, and this is where, I'm getting her research and sharing it here with you. It's in Palau, it's in New Zealand, it's in Hawaii, South Africa, Tanzania, the Middle East, India, Europe. It's everywhere in the Caribbean where I live. It's very much in the Haitian community, Jamaican community, and probably here in Zambia. I don't know that much, and that's why I wanted to do this talk, is to invite people to come forwards and talk and share. And if we go into more rural areas where there isn't a hospital, today we see women practicing vaginal steaming because this is all that women had. If we had a problem, if there was an infection, if a woman had delivered, she was cared for with steam. And then what happened is in the 1500s, the knowledge of steaming began to get lost as we move more into modern gynecology. So at this time, we had women looking after women, and then what happened is you could only practice medicine with women if you had been to university, and at the time only men were allowed to go to university. So suddenly women were now in the hands of men, having women's medicine practiced, which moved away from steaming. Steaming was disregarded. A woman that was delivering was now put on a bed, laying down to deliver. It was assumed that they couldn't dilate, and so episiotomies, they were being cut, and we left this evidence-based medicine of what had happened for years and had this more modern approach to medicine. And at the time, all the European countries followed suit, and then we had colonialism. We had the movement of Europeans into the Caribbean, and so all these practices that were being practiced in Europe traveled now over to the Americas. And in the 1840s, I don't know if you've heard, but he was known as the grandfather of gynecology, J. Marion Sims. He would perform surgeries on his slaves without anesthesia, and that is how a lot of the modern gynecology practices that we know, like that is where its roots were. And a lot has changed since then. It has evolved since then, but if we go back and we see when and what happened, and then the burning of the witches. So for instance, myself, what I'm doing right now, I have herbs, and I'm talking to you about using this. I would have been burned at the stake. So it's just interesting to know. It's interesting to know where we've come from, how it's evolved. And then here, just talking about practices that are happening around the world. Korea is one of the places where you see it used pretty much like how you floss your teeth, how you brush your teeth. Steaming is considered, the same way. It's for both men and women. It's not just women's issues. You've got colon issues, hemorrhoids, enlarged prostate, impotence. And they have also done that was another study I'll talk about later. Ghana, it's used a lot in postpartum. In Germany, for full term, when a woman's full term and she's coming to give birth, that's when they're implementing the steam. In China, they use it more as a preventative. So again, just like flossing your teeth, brushing your teeth. In the Czech Republic, there are several hospitals that are using the steam chairs in the hospital. So a woman comes in and her delivery has stalled, and they're using the steam to help soften and relax. And also just in pap smears, so we all have to go and have them done, and it's an uncomfortable procedure. Steaming beforehand helps to just soften and open everything, so it can make a not so pleasant but essential practice just that much less impactful on the body. So here we have a map of the world, and this is the training that I have done, and I've kept doing this talk over the years, and I love that each time I take a screenshot of it, it's just getting bigger and bigger, and there are more and more people, and you can see in Africa now there's women that are doing the training and that are offering it, and it's being done in many different ways, which is just so wonderful. We have vaginal steam spas, yoni steam spas, where like you go and get your pedicure or you get your hair done. Women are doing it in this way, and women are doing it in their homes. This is the hospital I was talking about in Czech Republic. So this is the stool that they've designed, so it's really easy. It packs up flat, and the herbs, a little pot at the bottom. And I mean, I would love, this could be happening in Zambia. This could be, let's do it. So why does vaginal steam work? Does anybody have any idea? What is it actually that is making it work? Anybody? Yeah?
From my experience, I think it's the steam from the head that are put into the mixture that's going to the body and clean out the walls and clean out any other toxins that I need.
Exactly. So it's heat, and heat is improving circulation, and so it's getting the blood moving. It's helping the uterus to function well. So when we have our womb cleanse, when we have our period each month, it's helping to clear that out. And it's also, steaming goes beyond just when you're menstruating. It's also for menopause. So we still can get cysts, we still can get fibroids, we still can get congestion, we still can get infections. And it's just helping circulation, it's helping to clear. It's also stimulating a meridian point. So in Chinese medicine, it's called CV1, and it's in the perineum, so just between the vaginal opening and the anus. And when this point is triggered, like in acupuncture, they use a needle to trigger it. The steam is actually, in a much more gentler way, doing the same thing. And that stimulation of that is helping with oxytocin releasing, so the happy, feel-good hormone. So when you think about when a woman has just given birth, it's just helping to relax her and get her in a good mental state as well to bond with her baby. And also the herbs. So the herbs that you use in the sauna, they are able to go up the vaginal canal, go all the way into the uterus, into the fallopian tubes, into the ovaries, and it's just very easily absorbed. So, with medicine, we swallow it, we take it into our body, the stomach has to process it, and it has to go through the whole digestive system, whereas with steaming, it's direct, it's going straight to the area. It's also tightening and lifting, so the heat coming in, circulating everything, helps with prolapse. So women, it can happen not just with childbirth, but where the uterus starts to fall out the vaginal canal. The steaming is helping to lift and tighten and strengthen. I'm just going to turn my sauna on. Is there any proof that it works? There's lots of anecdotal evidence. My teacher here, Kelly Garza, has over 700 case studies. There's a testimonial database on her website where women have written down what their symptom was before, and it could be anything from they were struggling with getting pregnant and they were going through IVF and it wasn't working, and then they implemented the steaming and they were able to conceive, to recurrent infections where you keep going to the doctors, getting, canesten cream, and it's just not working. they implemented the steaming, and all of their thrush was gone. So daily we have women that are trying it, and it's, you know, helping them a lot. And then there have been some clinical trials as well. One of them is the 4th trimester vaginal steam study, where they studied women that had given birth and compared steaming and not steaming, and what happened there, and I'll talk about that a bit more. And then also in Asia, they looked at the incidence of cervical cancer and HPV, and how steaming and fumigation was able to help lower the rates of cancer and HPV just through implementing the steam along with their radiation. Like it was complementing the treatment. So this here is the 4th trimester study. If you're interested in, you know, looking into a clinical study, and they conducted it on these women. The tests were done on 4 days postpartum, 8 days, and then 6 weeks later. And they were looking at their blood pressure, what was happening with their blood pressure, their waist size, so everything coming back in, any damage to the lochia, so if they'd had tearing, if there was stitches, sutures, their bowel movements, if there was hemorrhoids, and then their milk supply. And in all of the cases, the women who had steamed, their blood pressure was lowered. And if we think about, you know, here in Zambia, well, around the world really, with preeclampsia, like the condition that I had, with the blood pressure being raised, having a steaming practice that's just lowering the blood pressure is wonderful. Uterine restoration, the waist was shrinking, so your uterus is actually shrinking back to its original size more easily. The lochia, the blood that passes after we deliver, was able to come out much quicker. The suture discomfort, they were saying that they had less discomfort from their sutures, and I believe the women that hadn't steamed were having, you know, complications with the stitches, and then just having regular bowel movements more easily, and breast milk supply increasing. So, you know, I know for a lot of women that is an issue of the milk coming through, and so to have this practice that you're sitting on, someone's preparing the herbs for you, and you sit on it, and it's improving. Okay, so how to steam. What you need to steam is a pot. So, sorry, come out of here. So some people steam with a plastic bowl, and I would recommend against that, because you've got the plastic leaching with the hot water into that water, and that's then being absorbed by the body. So clay or earthenware is what I recommend. Glass, enamel, cast iron, or stainless steel. Here I have my sauna set up. It's actually not hot. I probably should have turned it on a bit earlier, but I've got, so I'm here using a stainless steel pot, and I've got about 2 liters of water inside it. And you can't see here, but if I show you this picture, you can see the inside of the pot. I'm using just a single burner. You don't have to use this, you could just use a kettle at home. So it's like making a cup of tea, really. You boil your water and you put your herbs. So I have here, these are the gentle herb blend. So I keep my herbs in a pot, and these herbs are the herbs that I get from my teacher in California. And so once the water's boiled, this is going to be interesting, juggling a microphone and this. Hang on a sec. So the water comes to the boil, and then you just add 3 tablespoons. So here we go. And you don't have to have a sauna. Like I here have this sauna, but it's not necessary. You can literally put 2 chairs together and sit over the chairs with the pot suspended between. So like just here, these chairs are together, you push them together so that you can sit, and then the pot is below, you can squat over the pot. I like the sauna because it's just more comfortable, and you can make it, you know, more of a meditative practice. And so once the water's come to the boil, you've put your herbs in, turn it off, and then let the herbs seep. So again, like you're making a cup of tea, you just let it brew, and then after 10 minutes, that's when now your steam is ready. And there's been lots of, you know, articles on the internet saying that steaming is really dangerous for you. You could burn yourself. You know, you could die. You're not going to die. Nobody's ever died from steaming. It's like a hot cup of tea. You test it first, and if it's too hot, you know, wait. Yeah. So pretend it's been 10 minutes. The herbs have seeped. I then take off my lid. And then you'd have got the heat coming through, and just testing with your hand to see, does the temperature feel okay? And then you sit on it, and I'm not going to do that now, but you know, I have a dress on, I could literally just sit with that. I like to get a chitenge and just place that over so that there's you know, you're containing the steam. And then to begin with, just 10 minutes of steaming for different conditions, and I'm not going to go into all of that today because the purpose is more just about raising awareness of what the practice is. You can steam for longer periods of time, but I recommend working with someone if it's a more complicated thing that you're dealing with, if it's infertility, or maybe you have, you know, you bleed very often, that maybe in 1 month you're having 2 periods a month, and where there's imbalances. So this is the mild setup that I was just talking about. So you've got no heat, your water is steeped for 10 minutes, and then you sit on it for 10 minutes. And then if you wanted to progress to a more advanced setup, that would be 30 minutes of steaming, and you keep the heat source underneath. So like how I have that little burner, you just turn it to really low, so that, because after about 10 minutes it starts to feel a bit, well, you don't feel anything. So the first time I ever tried steaming, it was a really powerful experience for me. I was very emotional, and it felt, yeah, I just really connected to the ancient wisdom, and there was a lot of release, tears, and that would happen quite a lot when I would steam. And that may happen, a trauma that is there from delivering, from, it may be sexual abuse, it may be just any trauma that needs to be released from your body. So it's simple, but it's a really powerful method and can be used as contemplation, you know, journaling. I have it as a monthly practice, so just before the period, after the period, it helps to get everything ready for that period to be, you know, efficient and work well. There are contraindications, so if you are pregnant, do not steam unless you're working with someone and they can advise you when is a good time. And then also if you're trying to conceive, so you wouldn't steam after ovulation because you may be pregnant, and then you wouldn't want to be, because it opens the cervix, so that's why it's good for, you know, pre-delivery. So that's why you wouldn't do it just post-ovulation. And then if you're somebody that has 2 periods a month, you just bleed randomly. Yeah, you have to work with different herbs to do that. So what herbs to use? As I mentioned, the herbs that I have here are from my teacher in California, and she has 4 different blends, and they all have universal properties in them. So they're cleansing, they're toning, they're bringing in qi into the blood, and then, so that's the gentle blend, and then the other ones work more with cleansing, disinfecting, or cooling. So she has stuff on her website, like you can go if that's the source of herbs that you want to use. But this book here that I have is from I'm going to talk about him, Don Eligio Panti. He was a Mayan healer in Belize, and this book has over, I think, 500 plants that are in Belize, and so it's called Messages from the Gods, a guide to the useful plants of Belize. And some of the plants that are in here are here in Zambia, and they have descriptions of how to use these plants. So this is work that still needs to be done. I'm interested in doing it. I'm interested in, collaborating with someone to put together blends. I did actually find these herbs at Umoyo, at Manda Hill, which I was quite excited to see. It's a yoni steam blend. The ingredients, though, I believe, are things that you can't get here. So it's safflower, motherwort, rose, mugwort leaf, angelica, lavender, and saffora. So there's a whole blend. But even if you don't use herbs, even if all you're using is water, that alone creates the heat. It creates a circulation. It will do something. You can add here 6 cups of water to a 1/4 cup of apple cider vinegar, or half a teaspoon of salt, and half a teaspoon of salt, and that as well will help. So you don't have to have herbs. You could use guava leaves, like just get 8 or 9 guava leaves and put those in. So I don't know about any studies. I'm sure I could look into it and see, what people have done, but from what I know, if there is a sensitivity, 10 minutes is what's recommended. It may be that you do 5. And so you just, you approach gently, and, like I say, the power is in your hands. It's just experiment and see what happens, and also exploring the different herbs and seeing what they, do. And then obviously we would be looking, if you wanted to steam, at what is your intention for steaming. And so what I do is, when somebody comes to me, I do a vaginal steam consultation. So we look at your menstrual cycle, we look at how many days it is, how often it comes, what are the symptoms, and then from that decide, okay, these are the types of herbs that I would recommend that you do. This is the protocol, like this is how often I would recommend doing it, and then you do it, and then a month later we look at it and we go, okay, what happened? And then we, shift and change, and it's a journey, really. Yeah. Thank you. And it's not a frightening practice. There is smoke, so fumigation. You can use sage, which I do have some sage with me, so you can get like a sage stick, put that in the sauna, and the smoke, it's the same principle. It's rising, it's going up, and it's the property of the herb, so it is smoke as well, but in this instance we're just looking at steam. Water and steam. So the question's about if after you've given birth and you had a C-section, what process, basically the benefits, how it's helping. So when a woman has given birth, depending how she's delivered, if it's vaginally, she can actually start steaming from day 2. And it's really good to get the steam in there, the warmth in there, and steaming every single day for a month. If it's a C-section, there's a delay, so you don't go straight in with the steam. Generally, the doctor's check is after 6 weeks. I think that's the same here in Zambia. And so at that point, if the doctor's given the all clear, that is when I would recommend implementing the steaming. And postpartum is, traditionally that was when steaming really happened. When we look back in history, that was when steam was used mainly, was after a woman had given birth. And it's like this portal, it's like this magical time when you can reset everything. So if you've had painful periods or there's been complications, this window of postpartum is when you get to sort of come in and just do a spring clean and reset everything. So it's such a powerful time to do it. And even if you don't do it straight away, like with me, I only discovered steaming a year and a half after my second child. 6 years after my C-section. I still felt benefit from the steam. The scar tissue, it helps to break down scar tissue, so my scar feels softer, there's more sensation just around where the incision was. So yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful practice. Yeah. And now we have, science is improving and we have people questioning, okay, well, this is what we're doing, but why? Like, what exactly is happening? And so, yeah, that's how lucky that you got to have that. That's wonderful. And it's a practice that you can start from men up, from that first period. So if somebody had told me when I was 11 and having painful periods, and it's more than just the steam, like what I teach women is how to have proper period care. So what are the things that in that winter phase when you're going within, what things can you do to actually nurture your body? What should you be eating? Baths, hot water bottles. One of the things which I might actually use a moment now to show you, this is moving on to the next section of the talk, but does anybody know what this is? A faja. So it's yes, yeah, so it's, from what I know, faja, F-A-J-A, is from the Mexican culture, and it's used to hold the uterus in place. So when we have our period, our uterus is growing, I think, up to 4 times the size. So it's carrying all of that blood, and it's held in place by ligaments. So those ligaments are holding it, and then they're stretching. And so, sometimes you feel that really heavy feeling. And so I'm going to put this down. Lay it around the front. Do a knot in the back. So right on the sacrum. And then come back around. Another knot there. Another knot. And then just tuck it in. And so you can cook your food, wash up the dishes, do what you need to do, walk around, put it under your dress if you don't want anyone to see it, or make it into a fashion item. But it just helps. It nurtures when you've had a baby or when you're even pregnant and there's all that extra weight. God, I wish I'd have had this. Yeah. It's for both. So when you're on your period, 100% put it on. Have that support. Just let it, be held, let your uterus be held. And it's also, I think it's just like a loving reminder of it's happening, like, paint your nails red or wear something red, like remind yourself that you're having your moon time, you're having your period, and this is a time when you give extra love to yourself. And if you do that, if you take this time to go inwards and slow down, it's like a part of your soul can speak to you and go, oh, this is actually not working quite well, so let's try and change course here, let's try and do something different. And you gather your energy, and then when you come into your ovulation, your summer, you've now got the energy to put into place everything that came in that fertile void of being inwards. So I don't demonstrate. It's a consultation where I would then teach the massage to you, yeah. But it's really simple, and then there's a diagram that you get with all of the moves, and I invite my clients that come to actually record the stroke, because initially, it can be like, which way am I supposed to be going? But then it just becomes second nature. But yeah, it's really lovely, really beautiful. Mm-hmm. So the next part of my talk is about abdominal therapy. And this wonderful man, Don Eligio Panti, who sadly is no longer alive, but his legacy lives on. And I'm so excited to be part of spreading his wonderful work. And it has really been the next piece of the puzzle for me. So coming back to my story, my journey, I learned about the steaming. And then, I don't know, it was during lockdown, somehow I saw Mayan abdominal massage. And, it was like a light went, there's something in that. And my wonderful yoga teacher friend, Dot Bowen in England, when I'd had my second baby. So first baby was C-section, second baby was a vaginal delivery. And so she came to the house when I was day 4, I think, postpartum, and she massaged my whole body, but she really massaged my belly. And oh my God, it just felt like my whole body was just being put back together, that this war, this battle that I'd been through of delivery it was like she was just putting everything back. And it was just so wonderful. And I thought, I want to learn, I want to understand what is this? Like, when we come and touch the belly, what are we actually doing? And this was the rabbit hole that I went down next. And so Don Eligio was born in Belize, and he was a shaman, and people would come to him. He'd treat them with herbs, with touch, with massage, and with prayers. And Rosita Arvigo was in Belize, and she's a naturopath from Chicago, and she convinced him to let her be his apprentice. And she worked with him, I believe, for about 13 years. And he taught her everything that he knows. And what's that book? Has it been passed on the herb? I have it here, sorry. This book here, she was the one that worked to get all of these herbs written down. And so I was fortunate enough this summer to meet, not Rosita herself, but I went to England and trained with Hilary and Amanda, 2 wonderful teachers. And this quote here, the uterus is a woman's core. If it's out of balance, her whole life is out of balance, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. And, this just resonated so much with me. And as I dove into the work, it all made so much sense, and it was really the next piece. And in this training, they talk about steaming, they talk about using steaming. And what we're doing is we're working on the abdomen, and they talk about 5 systems of flow. So is it acronym the right word? Naval. So nerves, arteries, veins, energy, and lymph. And these are the 5 systems that are being stimulated. And so you're working deeply into the diaphragm. So the massage is just below the rib cage and just above the pubic bone. And it's stimulating circulation. So we do the massage, but at the same time, we teach the massage. So here's just a whole list of different ailments that the massage can treat. So it can be, you may have been told that your uterus is tilted or misaligned, or when you're on your period, you find that you have diarrhea, like instantly, day 1, diarrhea. And so that could mean that your uterus is tilted backwards. So if you imagine that I'm a uterus, and this is the top of my thing, and these are my fallopian tubes, and they're behind me, so for everyone to see. So it's sitting nicely like this, but sometimes the uterus is sitting back, and it's leaning behind on the colon, or it's leaning forward and it's pressing on the bladder, or it's off to the side. And these ligaments which hold it in place are either tight or constricted. And so this massage is just coming to go, hang on guys, let's move back into place. And so suddenly you might find that you're not getting that diarrhea on day 1 because your uterus has moved better into alignment, and then also you've got period cramps that are coming, and when your uterus is tilted in the wrong way, or maybe it's tilted back, and you've got that contraction, so your body's trying to release that blood. It's like your uterus is having to move and contract, and that's the pain. So it's with period pain, but it's also with men, colon issues, prostate issues, constipation, if you've had miscarriages, if you've got problems getting pregnant. So we work with both the man and the woman to just get all these systems of flow moving. It's a very simple massage, it's so beautiful. And I offer both in-person consultations, but also online. So COVID actually helped the whole organization to change because they realized, people still needed this treatment. And the massage can be taught online, like on Zoom. You're there holding your belly, and I'm demonstrating on my belly, and so I teach you the massage so that you have it to do every single day. And so I did the training this summer, and it ended up falling over 2 periods. So the first part of the training, that period that I had was just like so much came out. It was like, whoa, where did all of this come from? And then the next one was just so much smoother, so much calmer. And it was just amazing that, there's more, like there's the steaming, and then suddenly there's this massage, and that's bringing even more love and more healing. And so, yeah, what else did I want to say about that? The female pelvis is a powerhouse of energy transformation, the very throne of creation through which universal creative energy patterns course and flow. And that's Dr. Rosita Arvigo. So one final little piece here, just if I have sparked interest in you and you want to explore more, Lisa Lister is a wonderful teacher in England. I've read and devoured many of her books, and I love what she's teaching about, and she's really here encouraging you love your lady landscape. It's a journey, it's not a race. So starting, just slowly implementing things, going on this lifelong exploration. And there's a lot to unpack, all of our life experiences, our education, our parents, our culture, our everything. It's all stored within our body. And I believe when we work in this way, we're not just working for ourselves, but we're working for all the generations that came before us, all the women that came before us, the women that were not given this information. We were frightened to talk because of the burning of the witches or the whatever, and we're healing backwards, but we're also healing forwards. And it starts with ourselves. We'll all have different journeys along the way. There's so many resources. This is the last time I was actually in Zambia, 2019, I got a bunch of saunas made, and these were my daughters. And yeah, just here, this slide, our role in history. It's, we're becoming the generation that's going to revive this ancient tradition, this ancient art, this form of medicine, and creating the standard of health for the next generation, taking the power back, and working in conjunction with, I'm not saying that, the medical practice and surgery and all of that is not good. No, absolutely, we work together in complementing and healing historic trauma. So what I'd love you to take away, more people coming at the end. So my message is really, ladies, the power is in your hands. It's in our hands to set up a sauna. It's in our hands to rub and massage our bellies. And when we learn to take care of ourselves, and live according to our cycle, really honoring it, really making sure everybody in the household is on board in supporting us, I believe we will change so much in organizations. We can bring it into the workplace and honor the women that are going through their menstruation or going through their menopause, and really have space for that and allow that power to be shared and benefit everybody. And I would love that every household has a sauna in it. Every household that has women, and the granny, the mum, the daughters, the granddaughters can all sit on the same sauna, and that we just learn how to rub our bellies and rub with love, because I think so often the belly can be like, oh, it's sticking out too much, or it's, a bit flabby, or it's got stretch marks, but just when we touch our wombs, that we touch them with love, whether our uterus and ovaries are there or not. And also, if this talk has sparked anything in you, for those of you that are here, or those of you that are watching the recording, I would love to connect and collaborate, and I would love to see this work being really spread in the community with young girls that are just starting their periods. I'm really excited to just spread this message, and thank you so much for coming.
Down the road next to Harry's Grill, there's a double-story building, quite big, and that's a new health and wellness center in Zambia. It's opening soon, hopefully around March. So that's an exciting new venture. It's got about 28 clinics, and the plan is that we are going to bring together a range of health specialists, both from the wellness holistic side, but also the general medical, your general practitioners, gynecologists, everything basically. Already we have Bibron, I don't know if you've heard of it. It's a dialysis renal clinic, and they're opening their first center in Zambia. So that's extremely exciting, and I think even more exciting is that they are NEMA accredited. So it's going to help people from all socio-economic backgrounds, that's the plan. And that goes hand in hand with an NGO that I've just started called Nutrition Aid Zambia. The Wellness Center, the plan is to help people from all backgrounds, different multidisciplinary practitioners coming together. As Auntie Marisa said, it's going to have to be people working together from the holistic medicine, but also from general conventional medicine. So that's super exciting, and we're open to suggestions, ideas, connections. So if you have anything, please come to speak to me after in the snack section. And if you want a tour, I'm also happy to give one after this finishes. So thank you for all coming, and enjoy.
Well, I thought the talk was a wonderful experience. It wasn't only informative for things that I didn't realize or understand before, but it was wonderful to also be in the same room as a variety of people who were experiencing things that they either had never spoken about or didn't realize that others had experienced and could even speak about it. Topics that we think that we can't talk about we were able to speak about and say, oh, someone else has this problem or had this experience, and it's nice to feel comfortable and realize that you're not the only one going through a certain situation.
Hi, I am so grateful to be here. I had such an amazing time. It was just so empowering and life-changing, and I'll definitely encourage you, if you're questioning, if you're curious, to go on this journey, because your life will never be the same.
I absolutely loved the talk. I think my favorite thing about it was the sense of community between the women. Everyone was just so comfortable and happy to share things with each other. I really think this is the start of something good.
The first time I came across the concept of vaginal steaming was in Ethiopia, among the traditional practices that the women they had practiced. I'm happy to see 7 years later we're having this conversation here in Zambia, Lusaka. It gives me hope to know that we're having a wave of women who are taking power of their bodies and taking control of their wellness.